All right, so welcome to this deep dive. Today we're headed down to St. Johns County, Florida,
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
where a proposed development
Yeah.
called Verde sparked a pretty big debate
Huge.
and ultimately got shut down by the county board,
Yeah, unanimously.
unanimously no less.
Right.
This proposed Agrihood, it promised that kind of farm-to-table lifestyle,
Right.
but something just didn't click with the community.
No.
So let's take a look and see what went wrong.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the Agrihood concept itself
Right.
is really designed to kind of blend the best of rural and suburban living.
Okay.
So you can imagine a neighborhood with like event barns,
Oh, wow.
working farms, fresh produce,
So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so picture this.
Right.
2,673 acres.
Wow.
Nestled between County Roads 208 and 214, just west of I-95 and south of the St. Augustine outlets.
Okay.
That's where Verde was supposed to be developed. Homes, retail spaces, commercial areas, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, they were going for it.
But despite this pretty nice-sounding vision,
Right.
the St. Johns County Board of Commissioners voted unanimously against it
Wow.
on November 5th. Not a single vote in favor.
Not one. Yeah. I saw that.
So,
Well, the board meeting minutes, if you look at those,
that's right.
traffic congestion was a big one.
Uh-huh.
Verde, as it was proposed, would have added a whopping 23,000 daily trips
Oh, wow.
to roads that are already pretty packed.
Yeah,
Think about all those new residents moving in.
right.
The average number of trips that each household makes every day.
Oh, yeah.
And then what impact that has on, like, peak hour congestion.
Yeah, I guess.
We're talking potential gridlock.
23,000 trips. That's a lot of cars.
It is?
And anybody who's driven in that area knows.
Oh, yeah.
Traffic can be tough,
Especially
during rush hour.
Exactly. Infrastructure is always key in these big developments.
Right.
And the board was obviously not convinced that the existing roads could handle it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. But traffic wasn't the only concern, right?
Oh, no. Not even close.
You could really feel this pushback from the community.
Yeah.
Hundreds of emails going to the board,
Flooding their inboxes.
all against the project. And then you had those public forums,
Oh, yeah. I read about those.
packed houses, and it seemed like everybody was against Verde.
It was pretty unanimous.
And even before the board meeting, the St. Johns County Planning and Zoning Agency,
Right.
those are the folks who really dig into the details.
Yeah.
Even they unanimously recommended rejecting the project.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, so the community was very clearly not on board.
No, they weren't.
And it seems like they weren't alone because during the
I
meeting,
don't know that key meeting.
board chair Sarah Arnold, she made a statement.
Okay.
And it really kind of captured how everybody was feeling. She said, "I just don't think this proposal is ready for prime time. It's not that there won't be a day when it's appropriate, but I do not think that time is now."
That's nuance.
It is a nuanced statement.
It is.
It's like she's saying, okay, we get the Agrihood idea, but this specific project just isn't the right fit.
Right place, right time.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
exactly.
So she's leaving the door open a little bit
Uh-huh.
for future revisions
Interesting.
or maybe even a different approach.
Okay.
But it really highlights that development goals and community needs
Yeah.
got to be on the same page.
Gotta be in sync.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the community pushing back.
Yeah.
You've got the board saying, no way.
Yeah.
But what about freehold communities?
The developer.
The developers behind Verde.
Right.
They clearly were really into this project.
Oh, yeah. They believed in it.
So what were they thinking?
Well, they had some pretty compelling arguments.
Okay.
They pointed to their other agrihoods that have been successful.
Oh, so they've done this before.
Yeah, in other areas, they've worked really well.
Interesting.
Imagine communities really thriving on that farm-to-table lifestyle
Okay.
and all those unique amenities.
So it works in other places.
It does. And they also said that Verde fit with the county's comprehensive plan,
Okay.
which is all about how they're going to handle population growth.
So on paper, it sounds like they had a good argument.
Yeah, it does.
But something tells me there's more to this story.
Oh, I think so.
Were there maybe some deeper concerns that we need to look at?
Yeah, I think so. Were the community's concerns really understood
Right.
and addressed?
Yeah.
Was there like a disconnect
Uh-huh.
between what they were envisioning and what would actually happen?
Yeah, and let's not forget about the location itself.
Oh, that's important.
This land has a history.
It does.
And understanding that history might help us figure out why this project gave so much pushback.
I think you're right.
So what's the history with this land?
Well, right now it's owned by the Roggenson Improvement Company,
Okay.
founded over a century ago by a guy named John Robinson.
Wow. So this land has some deep roots.
It does.
This is going way back. So first you have these dense forests, then agricultural fields, and now this push for residential and commercial development.
Yeah, it's interesting how it's evolved.
And that brings us back to Verde and freehold communities
Right, full circle.
and their argument that their other agrihoods are thriving.
Right, with residents loving that farm-to-table lifestyle.
Yeah, and all those unique amenities that they offer.
Farmers markets right outside your door,
Mm.
fresh produce everywhere you look, maybe even community gardens.
So it sounds great, but would it actually work in St. Johns County?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's the big question.
Each community has its own character
Right.
and its own needs.
And just because it works somewhere else doesn't mean it'll work here.
Exactly.
And while the comprehensive plan says, okay, we need more housing,
Right, to keep up with the growth.
it doesn't necessarily say, this is how we should do it.
Right, it's not specific.
It doesn't endorse this specific type of development
Exactly.
for this particular location.
Yeah, and I think that's where the community and the board really got hung up.
Yeah, because those 23,000 daily trips,
Right,
that's a big number.
it is.
And no matter how appealing this Agrihood idea sounds,
Yeah,
nobody wants to sit in traffic all day.
nobody wants that.
Right.
Now,
So it seems like maybe it was the right idea, but in the wrong place.
yeah, maybe wrong time to...
Yeah, wrong time. You've got freehold communities with this vision of this vibrant, sustainable community.
Right.
And then you've got the community pushing back, worried about traffic nightmares,
Yeah.
and their quiet corner of the world getting overdeveloped.
Right, it's that balance.
Yeah.
And I think that raises an interesting question. Could this have been avoided?
Oh, that's a good question.
Was there a way for freehold to kind of bridge that gap
Yeah.
between their vision and what the community wanted?
Like, what if they'd talked to the community sooner?
Exactly.
And really listened to what they had to say?
Yeah, and been more willing to adapt their plans.
Yeah. Maybe things could have gone differently.
It's possible.
That's a really good point.
Mm.
Open communication. Right.
And a willingness to compromise.
It's key.
It's so important in these situations.
Yeah.
It's about finding solutions that work for everybody.
Right. Both the developer and the people who live there.
Exactly. And Freehold kept saying that Verde fit with the county's plan for growth.
Right. They said it aligned.
But did they give specific examples
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
of how their project met the requirements of the plan?
Right. Or what evidence they had from their other agrihoods that worked so well.
That's what we need to look at.
Yeah, to really understand their perspective.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
That's a good question.
Because the need for housing in St. Johns County,
Right.
that's not going away.
No.
But this particular project has clearly hit a wall.
Yeah, it did.
So what's next for this community?
Well, the door might not be completely closed on the Agrihood idea.
Oh, really?
If you remember Chair Arnold's statement,
Uh-huh.
she seemed to suggest that maybe a revised proposal
One that takes care of the traffic and infrastructure concerns could be looked at later on.
So there's still a chance.
Maybe.
Or maybe this whole experience will lead to a bigger conversation.
About what kind of development is right for St. Johns County.
Yeah, what are the other options?
Right.
How can they balance growth
Yeah.
with keeping what makes their community special?
Yeah, that's always the challenge.
Those are some tough questions.
They are.
No easy answers.
No.
So for our listener who's been following this debate closely,
Right.
let's shift gears for a minute and think about this.
Okay.
If this Agrihood model isn't the right answer for St. Johns County,
Right.
what is? What kind of development would work best
That's a good question.
for both the community and the environment?
Yeah. How do you balance those two things?
That's what we're going to explore next.
That's a question worth thinking about.
Mm.
What kind of development really fits with St. Johns County?
Yeah, maybe something that takes inspiration from its history.
Right? We were talking about John Robinson's legacy
Uh-huh.
and how his company really shaped the area.
Right.
It reminds us that development's not new.
Yeah.
St. Johns County's seen a lot of changes.
So now you have this prime real estate
Yeah.
that used to be for timber and turpentine,
Right.
and it's at the center of this debate about its future.
It is.
Does that history make things even more complicated?
I think it does.
Yeah.
It shows that we're not just talking about a proposal. We're
No.
talking about a community's identity.
Right.
St. Johns County is one of the fastest growing counties in Florida.
Wow.
So how do they honor their past and plan for their future?
That's a tough one.
It is.
It's like this Agrihood debate is just one chapter
Yeah.
in a much longer story.
Yeah.
A story that started with people like John Robinson.
Right, those pioneers.
And it's still going on with every new development proposal.
Exactly. And every single resident
Yeah.
has a voice in that story.
Right.
They all have a say in what their community becomes.
It's about more than just buildings.
Yeah, it's about creating a place where people want to live,
Yeah.
work, raise their families.
So what does this all mean for our listener?
That's a good question.
We've looked at this rejected Agrihood.
Right.
We've talked about the traffic problems.
Yeah.
Explored how the community's dealing with all this growth.
Right.
And uncovered this land with a really rich history.
Deep roots.
So what's the big takeaway here?
I think it comes down to development isn't necessarily good or bad.
Okay.
It's about making good choices.
Uh-huh.
Choices that line up with the community's values,
Right.
that protect the environment,
Yeah.
and make life better for everyone.
And that takes listening to different points of view,
Absolutely.
finding common ground,
Yeah.
understanding what the community needs and wants.
It's about building a future that respects the past,
Uh-huh.
but also embraces what's possible.
Well said.
And that future is still being written.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe this whole Verde thing will make St. Johns County think more carefully about development.
Yeah, take a more community-driven approach.
Exactly.
So if this Agrihood model isn't the answer, what is?
That's the question.
We encourage you to check out the county's comprehensive plan.
Yeah, it's a good resource.
Do some research on different development models.
There are a lot out there.
And get involved in the conversation.
Yeah, make your voice heard.
The future of St. Johns County is in your hands.
And remember the choices we make today.
Yeah.
They affect what happens for generations to come.
That's a good point to end on. So that wraps up our deep dive
Into the Agrihood debate.
in St. Johns County.
Fascinating stuff.
We hope you learned something.
And that it got you thinking.
Until next time,
Keep exploring
keep asking questions.
and keep learning. Yeah, it really does make you wonder what kind of development would really be a good fit, you know?
Yeah, like something that's inspired by the history of the area, maybe?
Right. We were talking about John Robinson before
Yeah.
and how his company shaped the whole landscape.
Uh-huh.
It shows how development's always been a part of St. Johns County.
Right. It's not a new thing.
They've seen a lot of change over the years.
And now, this piece of land that used to be for timber and turpentine,
Uh-huh.
it's right in the middle of this huge debate about the future.
It is.
Does that history make things even more complicated, do you think?
I think it does. It goes beyond just a development proposal.
Uh-huh.
It gets into the community's identity.
Right. Like who they are.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
St. Johns County is growing so fast.
It is one of the fastest growing counties in Florida.
So how do they hold on to their past
Right.
while they're planning for the future?
That's a tough balancing act.
It is.
It's like this Agrihood thing is just one small part
Yeah.
of a much bigger story.
Exactly.
A story that goes all the way back to people like John Robinson.
Right, those pioneers.
And it's still unfolding with every new development that comes up.
And every single resident is part of that story
Yeah, they all have a say.
in what their community becomes.
It's not just about the buildings.
No, it's about building a place where people want to be.
Yeah, where they can live and work and raise their families.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for our listener?
That's the question, isn't it?
We've dug into this rejected Agrihood.
Right.
We talked about all the traffic problems. We saw how the community's dealing with all this growth.
Right.
And we uncovered this land with so much history.
Deep roots.
So what's the main takeaway here?
I think it boils down to this development itself isn't good or bad.
Okay.
It's about being smart,
Uh-huh.
making choices that match what the community believes in,
Yeah, like their values.
that protect the environment,
Right.
and make life better for everyone.
And to do that, you have to listen to each other.
Absolutely.
Find some common ground.
Right.
Really understand what the community needs and wants.
It's about building a future that respects the past,
Yeah.
but is also open to new possibilities.
Very well said.
And that future is still being shaped.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe this whole Verde situation
Yeah.
will help St. Johns County make better decisions about development.
Be more deliberate about it.
Yeah, more community-driven.
So if this Agrihood isn't the answer, what is?
That's for everyone to figure out.
We encourage you to look at the county's comprehensive plan.
Yeah, it's a great place to start.
Do some research on different ways to approach development.
There are lots of options out there.
And get involved in the conversation.
Knock your voice heard.
The future of St. Johns County is in your hands.
That's right.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive
Into the Agrihood debate.
in St. Johns County.
It's been a fascinating look,
We hope you found it informative.
and that it got you thinking.
Until next time, keep exploring
Keep asking questions.
and keep learning.